It's a fight for dominance in the Northwoods. My name is Jeff Moore, and I am the Northwoods Carver. You know, I've been a hunter for, I don't know, a long time, but I've been carving for way longer. I've seen scrappy whitetail bucks battle, but this one is between me and a couple of whitetail bucks I carved years ago. Stick around and see how I did. We have a new project. It's called the Whitetail Properties Deer Restoration. No, that's not right. It's called the Whitetail Restoration Project. That's not too bad. We'll stick with that for now. The Whitetail Restoration Project. So this is a pretty famous deer right here, and his enemy is in the back room. I have to keep them separated. This is part of the whitetail. This was a project I did years ago for Whitetail Properties. Maybe you heard of them? No, I don't know. But anyway, somebody dropped a tree on these poor deer, and I had to carve them 2 new ones. And then I salvaged this from the insurance company, and I've had them in my barn in the back, taking up space on a cart that I probably could have used 1,000 times. So these deer are, this is our winter restoration project. Hopefully it doesn't take all winter. I want to have these things done hopefully in the next 30 days or so, I'm hoping. But I want to have them done. This is it. We've got 2 deer to restore. And long story short, we're going to start today. It's going to be fun is going back into the piece and
like good memories
after all these years and check my work. This was before I had a planer. This was before I had a joiner. This was before everything. I had to hand do every board. These were made out of slabs, not beams.
I was just gonna say that.
So it's so strong. It is so strong because every layer, you know, all the boards are about this wide, whatever. And so there's 3 inches thick, and every layer has that epoxy. And it's completely, and not only is that all done up, the pieces were done up, flattened off, the head, everything was put on. I mean, there's so many joints in this thing, or seams. It's insane. When I strip it down, you'll see a million seams, and it's just gorgeous. But the antlers all were laminated with the grain going in the direction of the appendage. So if the antler curved this way, that's the way the grain was going. If it came off the head this way, that's the way the grain was going. And then I do little subtle, you know, things for each tine. But in my opinion, I wanted them to be grandiose, so I made these huge antlers, like elk antlers or something. But we're gonna keep them more modest. Probably in the 180 inch group, maybe. So here we are, the very beginning, actually, of trying to sort out the seams where the breaks happened. And I used epoxy to join those 2, you know, where the break was, and then we had to shim, and then we came from the back. I don't know, was that an elbow? Is that a deer head? No, deers don't have an elbow. I don't know what they call that thing. Like back where the elbow would be, I guess, on a deer. But there's a long lag that we tapped into there to hold everything extra strong. So it's just a precautionary measure. And so I'm just using the little belt to, you know, there was some fractures as well, so I had to deal with them. You can see where my fingers are at this point. I'm just trying to match the you know, the original furring as best as I could. I mean, I'm the guy that put it in there, so how hard could it be, right? So So yeah, just working it out and feathering it out. So there's 3 layers of that SC110, and it just takes several passes to get through all 3 layers, and then there's like a residue underneath those layers. So yeah, and you can see where the tree hit the back. There was a time when I wondered, when that tree came down and hit the Whitetail property sign, how much did it actually, absorb? Because if it hit those deer full on, eek. And here are some screw holes that I'm just messing with. I remember when we first got the deer back, we just kind of screwed the legs on temporarily so we could store them. So that's why those are there, and I'm just trying to clean things up.
So the new plan. I thought when I initially started this project that I'd have to strip this off. But it turns out it is in such great shape. I'm gonna have to strip it off in a few areas to fix cracks and damage and stuff, but I'm gonna leave it. I was gonna redo the furring and everything. And I think that would be waste. I don't really want to change the integrity of the piece either. I've been thinking about that, and I'm like, oh, I'm gonna go over these cracks and fix all the holes, clean the whole thing up. Because as you can see, this is so hard.
It is.
I mean, it is like way, way, way harder than any. I don't know. It's just crazy. Anyways, awesome. I'm very proud of these deer for that reason. They're just really, really well made. But then I'll hit it with acetone and let it dry, because it only takes seconds to dry. We'll scrub it as much as we can with scrub brushes, even if we have to.
Right.
Take off any residue that we can find, and then potentially just wash it with soap and water and then rinse it.
So my assistant Ray got underneath the deer and took care of all the drips and any other things that were out of place or needed to be worked on or addressed.
So here's what I know so far. I have to redo the deer antlers. This is one side of a 150 class buck, which is a pretty good buck by anybody's standards. 150 is pretty dang good. So this is what we're dealing with. Okay, so we need to knock the sides of this down so it doesn't look like such a brontosaurus buck. And we're gonna shorten the tine some, and we're gonna thin them down, not quite to this, but we want to have a really good buck. We actually want to have 2 really good bucks. So that's where I'm at. So I gotta resize everything. Let's just put it like that. So I have one in the rack over here. I took a little test swipe at it, and the coating in which I seal these in is something called SC110, and it's ridiculously hard. And just cutting through that is with a grinder even. It's no fun. So I gotta downsize everything with a grinder because there's metal in there. And I don't want to be using a burr bit of sorts, any kind of burr bit, metal burr bit. We'll trash the burr bit because I have no idea where the metal's going to end up. I know there's some in here, so I'm not just going to start digging a burr bit to this. I'm totally going to have to sand the whole thing down with the sandy pad. All right, so we've got 4 of these bad boys. We've already done all the scuffing on the deer. We'd like to have this thing, all the antlers done and mounted and painted, everything done by the end of the week. So it's like Sunday. That's what we're shooting for. And now that's minus the steel substructure. I don't know that we're going to need one because this might be ending up going in the house, and if it's going in the house, we don't need a steel substructure. So, that being said, no further ado, let's begin. So good, so far, whatever. I think what we're gonna do is kick this sucker and fast forward and see where we end up today. And maybe we'll get some good pictures at the end.
I suppose we should be discussing what exactly is happening in front of us right now. So I had to shorten the antlers, which was really tricky because at every joint, of course, I left metal. I left screws in there. I never expected to be doing this since, you know, when the tree landed on both deer, it smashed the sign, the Whitetail property sign, and it smashed both deer, knocked the legs off, the antlers, smashed everything into pieces. So ears, you know, I had to do a lot of different kind of repairs on these things, but the key was I didn't want to trash any of my equipment trying to, you know, cut these antlers apart. And so what I had to do was use grinders, as you can see here. Just I shortened them up. I had to use a Sawzall to cut through where I needed to, change the angles, shorten pieces up, and then put it all back together, and then go from there and make them thinner and smaller in size. So Ray's here doing the, as you can see, whoa, yep, you can see where the screw holes are, where the new metal is. It was tricky to clamp those angles. Let's just put it that way. Make it solid. Yeah, tricky. So you kind of get the gist there with that. Don't mind the mess. And there's my trusty sidekick Ray, and he's just taking out he's doing some of the finishing touches. Yeah, so he did a good job. They both the antlers looked pretty symmetrical with one another when we were finished with that set. Then we had to do another set. So there was 4 massive antlers that needed to be taken down and fixed up. Changed, all the angles had to change, all the diameters had to change of every point of it. And yeah, it was not exactly what I would call a it was a challenge from the start. I knew in the middle of the conversations about how we were going to do this that the antlers were going to be the most difficult part, just because there's so many pieces. I mean, those antlers shattered, and it was nice to, as you can see here, the pictures were you know, they turned out pretty good. You know, I thought they did. So here it isn't what it seems. I'm not drilling a hole and putting a dowel in there to mount the antler to it. Basically that's a plug, because a piece of metal from the antler when it broke was still in there. I could not get the metal out, so I had to make a big hole around the metal and pop it out with pliers or something. I can't remember what it was, but I had to pry that metal out, and I just used that wood dowel to fill the hole. And the tricky part was it was a weird sized hole, so I had to make my own dowel rods. But here I am describing some of the issues. I don't think I could use the sound on this because there was music in the background. So you can see the pretty finished antler anyway, and how I was going to take a block like that one and change the angle, and you know, because some of the antlers broke in different places, so I had to like improvise and add sections where they were going to attach the base, because I needed the widest thing I could mount to the top of the head. And there's some of the aftermath. Antlers. That represented a lot of work. So here's the scuffed deer, and basically you can see in certain spots where there's bare wood, I had to go over that with my little grinder and clean everything up, and I had to mount the legs and everything. So here's some with the antlers on and in position, and all scuffed up and all the legs repaired, and then it was time to lay everything down. After we washed them all down and cleaned them all up, we used this heavy duty, it's actually an exterior latex, and it is extremely good stuff, just to go over and protect what we had exposed. At the time we thought this piece was going outside, so we were just but under a roof, so it's like, if I would have never told this guy to put this back outside in the elements, because the epoxy coat had been compromised, and I just didn't feel comfortable doing that. So he told me he was going to put a big pavilion type roof over it, and I was like, okay, that's cool, as long as we don't have that. And he's going to put lighting on it and stuff. But here we see the blacked out whitetail deer, and how cool. You don't get to see this much unless you're around somebody who does a lot of dry brushing, or somebody who's not quite all there. So anyway, the process goes as such. You have to cover every square inch of it. In this light, it looks very much, like it's all painted, until you flip it over, you check, and you'll see little like pinholes that for some reason the paint isn't in, or whatever. It's important to have that all that coverage, because I really did want to build these things to withstand weather if they had to, but not ongoing sitting outside. The way they were at Whitetail Properties, they were just completely exposed, and I just didn't feel comfortable. So when I built the second set, I basically made them so that they would withstand more so. I just didn't feel like the joints would hold if they were to sit outside constantly. So they had these two deer, and if you do some research, you can find some images that I think it's either on their website or whatever, but where there's people that are in the hunting industry, celebrities from the hunting industry would all take pictures around it when they'd visit. And the fact that they had the silhouetted image on their Christmas cards that they sent out to their customers and friends tells you something too. Anyway, getting back to the paint process. So we need to lay down that layer of light over top of the dark, just so the color, whatever color I throw on there, is going to pop, because you can't do a light tone, can't do a color over black. It doesn't pop as well as if you had a lighter background. Anyway, so here I am applying the appropriate color. I wasn't sure how I was going to do this. I had no clue. And I just knew I needed it to kind of be somewhat close to what it was. But I also was shooting for this crazy bronze technique and again, in this light, there is no way you can catch that metallic part of the bronze. It's lost in there, which is really a bummer. I wish people could see the thing or both those deer in person, because then you could see the actual metallic-y bronze. It looked like straight up bronze. In here it just looks washed out in wood tone, but still looks pretty cool. I don't know, I'm just really proud of them. Great memories. You know, I often wondered what I was thinking back then. I really hope everyone that watched this video enjoyed it. I know I had a blast making it. My name is Jeff Moore, the Northwoods Carver, and thanks for seeing what I saw.